Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning, friends. Happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I'm so excited to talk with you today. So you all are going to definitely get a taste of my visuals today. I'm going to be talking about something I refer to as the Christmas tree effect, which ultimately is just going to teach you about stress, managing your stress, cortisol, how to manage your emotions. It's a really important conversation, but I think something that I really try to do on my podcast is break things down in a very simple way. No matter what your education or background is, what your familiarity might be with science or psychology, coaching, therapy, whatever you like, however you come to this podcast, the important thing that I want to help you with is to understand things in a more simple way. So we're going to be talking, like I said, about stress and cortisol and how to think about this and how to shift out of some of that stress you might be holding, specifically chronic stress as opposed to short-term stress. But I like to call it the Christmas tree effect, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what that means. So some of you may or may not be aware of something called epigenetics. And epigenetics, in the most simple terms, is kind of how your genes express themselves. So your DNA doesn't necessarily change, but how your genes communicate does change. And this can be a great thing, and it can also be a troubling thing. So here is something that I really want you to know when it comes to stress, because I know that so many of us have stressors, whether we're talking about them or we are not. And if you're anything like the women in my audience, a lot of times things are easier to internalize than to speak on out loud. And that internalizing is another thing that creates a lot of stress. So I want to break this down. I want to talk about it, and I want to make it easy for you to understand how to think about your stress and then how to navigate your stress as well. So here's the big thing with the Christmas tree effect. I like to think of the human body as a Christmas tree. Now, if you put a Christmas tree up every year, you know that one of the best and most magical parts is turning it on and seeing all of the beautiful twinkling lights. I know some of you are probably team color lights, and some of you are probably team sparkling white lights, warm or cool, or maybe blue. I'm team sparkly white, warm lights, but I also love color as well. Anyways, something that I want to dig into with this is thinking about the human body as a Christmas tree. And while having the Christmas tree lights on is a very beautiful thing, you don't keep your Christmas tree lights on year round. Maybe some of you in my audience do, and you're saying, Macy, I like to keep my tree up year round, and I love looking at the lights year round. But the more important thing that I want you to think about is you wouldn't keep your lights on 24/7 year round without expecting bulbs to burn out. That's what we're paying attention to. So if we think of the Christmas tree as the human body, And every single bulb on that tree is a part of your genes or epigenetics, right? What we're wanting to make sure of is that while the lights can be on and they're great to be on in short bursts, you don't want them on 24/7 all of the time. And here is how I relate it to stress and cortisol. Cortisol will turn the lights on. Okay, so think about that. Cortisol is what turns the lights on. Cortisol is your stress hormone. Now, we're not going to villainize cortisol because cortisol is not something that is bad in short bursts. In fact, cortisol is a really good thing in short bursts because it's what helps us wake up in the morning and get that burst of energy that we need to get going. It's also that kind of protective mechanism. If someone cuts you off in traffic, when you go to slam on your brakes, it's because cortisol releases through your body. It allows you to have that quick reaction. So in very short bursts, cortisol is a good thing. Same thing, like if you have to present or public speak, you often feel a burst of cortisol go through your body, especially if you're anything like me. I get very shy during presentations. You may find that you want to, shut down. But if it's something that you have to do, even though you're stressed and your heart is pounding, you will push through that stressful moment and get through that presentation. So cortisol in those moments are very, very powerful. If you're going back to the Christmas tree explanation, your lights would be on as you're getting through that presentation or as you slam the brakes when someone cuts you off in traffic or when you're first getting up in the morning. So that way you can get your morning routine done, especially done on time before you have to set out to do whatever you have to do in your day. So these are moments where your Christmas tree lights are going to be on, and that's okay. As soon as those moments pass, ideally you want the Christmas lights to turn off to preserve your energy, okay? Now, what happens for a lot of people, and remember that my podcast is geared towards speaking towards women, although men can relate as well. This applies to men as well. So if you're a male listener, I really hope you take a lot away from this as well. But for the sake of my podcast, I tend to talk to women, and my clients are mainly women. So with this, women are juggling a lot in their life. Whether you are a parent or you're not, there are stressors in life. There's work stressors. There's relationship stressors, not even just romantic relationship stressors. There's also family stressors, friendship stressors, work stressors. There's all money stressors. Okay. There are all kinds of things that we as humans get activated by that increases our cortisol, releases the stress hormone, and then turns our Christmas tree lights on. And without effective tools, without knowing how to manage our stress, how to manage our mindset, how to, use emotional intelligence skills, it is something that will cause our Christmas tree lights to stay on for a prolonged period of time. And I'm going to tell you why this becomes problematic. Again, short term, Christmas tree lights on, not a problem. Short burst of cortisol, not a problem. We're not going to villainize cortisol. It helps us. Long-term Christmas lights being on year round, never getting a break, never turning off, AKA chronic cortisol releasing, is where it becomes problematic. So I want you to think about this when you think of your genes, okay? We all are made up of epigenetics. We've got genes in our body. And with this comes certain predispositions that we can have. Predisposition just meaning like maybe something runs in your family. So like autoimmune disorders, mental health disorders, heart disease, things like this. So you want to think of different health ailments as something that can be a part of you, but not necessarily ever activated or something that you ever experience. So to make this a little bit more clear, think of it as a part of your light bulbs. So there are going to be some Christmas trees, AKA humans, that on their tree, One of their light bulbs might represent Hashimoto's. One of their light bulbs might represent bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or other mental health disorders. Another person might have heart disease as one of their light bulbs. Another person might have something completely different. I'm blanking on just different things and different factors of health ailments that you can experience, maybe like chronic migraines, things like that. So all of us may have different health ailments that are a part of our Christmas tree lights. And when cortisol releases, right, the light turns on. But as long as we turn that light off fairly quickly, it's not a problem. Okay, the light comes on and then the light goes off. Where we get into trouble is whenever we don't have the tools or we don't know how to manage our stress, and the light bulb stays on and it stays on and it stays on for a very long period of time until eventually we've got a big problem. The light bulb, that particular light bulb, burns out. Now, what does that mean when you have a light bulb burn out? That is when that predisposition can go from just a predisposition of something that you've always had within you to something that you're now having to care for because it's been activated. The light was on long enough to turn that health ailment on. Okay, so whenever we say things like stress kills, or you have to manage your stress, you have to do this in order to really take care of your health, this is ultimately what doctors are saying. Okay, this is why they're stressing the importance of lowering your stress, moving your body, taking care of your mental health, making sure your cup is full before you are depleting yourself, helping everybody else, living a life without boundaries. It's because we don't want your Christmas tree lights on too long. And that's a big thing that I'm focused on with my clients. Whenever a client comes to me and they say that they feel stressed, there's certain times where that stress is a good thing. That stress is helping them grow. So another example of cortisol releasing. When you feel stretched, and stretched because you're doing something that's maybe unfamiliar, you're doing something that's actually going to help improve your life or help you grow, while that stress may feel very hard in the moment, it's for the greater good. So there are going to be certain stressors in your life that are for the greater good of your health, mental health, emotional health, physical health. There are also stressors that are merely because you don't have the tools to lessen them. So you're walking around like a lit up Christmas tree forever, right? Forever being several months, several years, several decades. And the problem is we don't know when your light, that particular light on your tree, is going to burn out. And that is what we want to be mindful of, because you can have, let's say, 5 people. And let's say 5 people have the exact same predisposition light bulbs of heart disease. And your all's lights stay on at different times for different amounts of time. The problem is we don't know how long we have until one of our lights are going to burn out. For one person, it may be if you turn that light on 1,000 times, they'll be okay. But that next person, if you turn it on 1,000 times, they might already end up with something like heart disease, right? It was just too much for them. And we never know how many times our light bulb can be lit up and for how long before we subject ourselves to those kind of health ailments. So what I really want to focus on are the solutions to this and how to make sure that you're not burning out, and to recognize when you are starting to burn out. Because again, short bursts are fine, but constant exposure to your lights being on, that's when it can be very destructive as opposed to productive, okay? So let's talk about some different things when it comes to recognizing if your lights are on and if they're on for a prolonged period of time outside of those short bursts that I said are absolutely appropriate with cortisol, okay? So one way to recognize this is if you feel wired. So like wired as in you kind of feel like you have a level of energy that doesn't make sense because at the same time you're exhausted. Have you ever felt that way where it's like you're wired in the sense maybe you can't sleep, but you know you're tired. You really know you're tired, but your brain is racing. That's a perfect example. Or if you feel like you're constantly overreacting or having these big, strong emotional responses to things that shouldn't impact you as much. They're smaller things or smaller frustrations, but you just feel like, you're having bigger reactions than match what is happening. That's another way to recognize if you have been that, if that light bulb has been on for too long. Some physical cues that you may experience are things like headaches, gut issues, feeling restless, like you can't sleep, or even feeling a lot of tension. I would even say anxiousness all the time. If you constantly find that you're feeling anxiousness in your body, then I would say that your cortisol is very, very high and has probably been, quote, turned on for too long. Those light bulbs have been turned on too long on your Christmas tree. If you never get time for yourself, like if there's never a moment for pause and quiet. Now, I know if you're a mom, you're probably like, when is there time? And this is one of those moments where you have to be able to set boundaries. And sometimes moms, I know this is really hard, but those boundaries are asking for some help and letting yourself feel very uncomfortable as you hire out the help or make a plan in which you're going to be supported in having the quiet, whether you have a partner who can, take the kids for 30 minutes, or you hire a babysitter or a nanny, or you drop them off at like a gym. Some of the gyms have daycares, like figuring it out. A lot of times our excuses get in the way and we're like, I don't have time, or I don't have the resources, I don't have a way. And you will stay in that cortisol release because you're never getting time for yourself. And this is one of those things where it has to be a non-negotiable in your life to have that moment of pause, to have that moment of quiet, even if it's 10 to 15 minutes in the shower, like not listening to music, not, necessarily distracting yourself with anything, but like truly slowing yourself down. It could be, doing a body scrub of some sort, like a sugar scrub or a salt scrub or a bubble bath, or just a longer shower with some aromatics, put some lavender oil on, like something that actively resets your body and your nervous system as much as possible, and build that in as frequently as possible. Another way to recognize if you've been in cortisol release or high cortisol for too long is if you look really busy and feel really busy, but you're not actually being effective. So many of us pencil a lot of stuff in on our calendar, but then we'll say things like, I don't ever get it done, or I never get to all of it. I want you to really think about that and really look at that. Why are you busy but not effective? Why do you have so much on your calendar but you're not getting to it? Like that usually means that your mind is very full and very busy, but it's not necessarily because you lack time. It's like more of a management thing, and it's likely because that high cortisol release has your prefrontal cortex unable to function as well, okay? And that's another piece of like nervous system regulation. So here's the thing, with why we want to make sure that our Christmas tree lights are not on all of the time, because cortisol was not meant and is not meant to run 24/7. It's just not. We are not meant to be in high cortisol, and usually we can feel it. I know women especially, we usually know when we're in some really high cortisol, because I think it's moments wherever we will describe things like, I'm not okay. I'm not doing okay. I don't feel clear in my mind. I feel defeated. I feel worn down. I feel fatigued, and not like the kind that you're pushing yourself to grow, but the kind where you're like, I really, really, really feel a level of defeat, and I don't feel like myself, and I don't feel well. I think that that's, something that happens for a lot of us women. It's really important to also remember that, again, this prolonged period of stress will absolutely turn on those epigenetic markers for things that you don't technically ever have to experience. Just because you have maybe a predisposition of something on your Christmas tree doesn't mean you ever actually have to have it activated or live tending to it. If you end up having to tend to it, it's likely a sign that that light bulb was on for too long, right? Or turned on too many times, and your body finally succumbed to that amount of stress. What you want then is to better take care of yourself. Use that as an opportunity, if you've already experienced that, to shift some things in your life, knowing how the stress affected you. But if you're feeling this way and nothing has really happened in your health as kind of like a healthy scare kind of situation, then you want to just make sure you are putting things in place that help your mental and emotional and physical health. Your mental and your emotional and your physical health. Okay? You want to be able to regulate your nervous system, because if you're dysregulated, everything starts going downhill from there. You will age more quickly, your relationships will suffer, and also a lot of your creativity will be blocked, because when you are in a lot of chaos, you also lose out on clarity and having a clear mind to think, okay? So I'm going to give you some opportunities to think about how you can flip this if you feel this definitely resonates with you. First thing is finding that moment to pause and be. That can mean different things for different people. For me, what that means, I can tell when I am very dysregulated, and I can tell whenever I need pause and space. And for me, what that looks like is taking a drive in my car. Usually I'll park under a tree. I'll listen to birds. I will take some deep breaths. I will keep my phone off. Not off as in like turned off per se, but like I'm not just doom scrolling. I'm actually trying to take deep breaths and put my hand on my heart and my belly and really be intentional about resetting myself. And then I'll do some doom scrolling. I'm not even going to lie. But first, it's about making sure I'm regulated and I have peace and quiet to hear myself think. For other people, that might be like going out on a walk or grounding. If you've never heard of grounding, that's where you go and you literally connect to like the energy of the earth, which I know sounds crazy and woo-woo, but it's actually something that is so very important. You want to make sure that you're doing that for yourself, and that's just being barefoot in the grass or sitting in the grass or laying in the grass. Doing things like that can actually really shift your day. Moving your body is so important. Dance, you guys. Walk, stretch, twirl. I don't care what you do. Like, shake your hips. We hold a lot of trauma in our hips. Like, twerk it out. Move your body. Like, get yourself laughing at yourself or something. Just get on YouTube. Listen to your favorite songs. Just make sure you move your body. We need to move stagnant energy. You also want to make sure that you're getting good sleep. I know, again, if you're a parent, especially a parent to younger children, the sleep thing, hard, really hard. But you want to do your best. Like, what helps you anchor into sleep? Is it a consistent routine? Is it some sort of ritual before bed? Is it like putting lavender oil on, or taking a warm bath, or laying on, a little heating pad, or getting in a robe? Like, what helps your system start to shut down from the day-to-day stressors? Sleep as much as you can. And, again, sometimes what that means too is asking for help, even when it's really, really hard to do so. Like, ask for help. Like, can I take a 20-minute nap? Can I close my eyes for this? Like, when can we fit in those rituals that are so important, that actually matter to our health? Here's a big one. and I have a whole episode on this, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, 5 episodes on this. Boundaries. You have to have boundaries. Sometimes boundaries are going to be saying no and letting other people manage their emotions around the no's that you say, especially if people are used to you saying yes, 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 yes all the time. You have to remember that before you can help anybody else or be your best for anybody else, your cup has to be full. And if you have no boundaries, it's going to be really hard for your cup to be full. And another thing, okay, 2 big important things. Emotional regulation, which is my total MO. If you do not know how to emotionally regulate, you need to be continuing to listen to this podcast if you don't already have all the episodes in your memory, I guess you could say. Or if you are already a podcast listener, consider taking the next step and doing something as a client. I have lots of ways that I can help. So you just have to be willing to reach out, even if that's a 60-minute consult to see if we're a good fit for each other. Emotionally regulating can be in the form of coaching. It could be therapy. So go to therapy, go to counseling, find your person, right? I'm not going to be for everybody. Your therapist, like there's going to be certain therapists and counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists that are not going to be for everybody. Don't give up if you don't find the right one at the first try. Okay? Don't give up. Journal. Make sure that you're processing your emotions instead of just suppressing them. And if you need help and you want to do it in the coaching format, I'm your girl. I promise you, I will get you together. I will help you raise your emotional intelligence, and we will do some major work in your life that gets you feeling better and managing stress much better. And then the last thing that I would say is find those areas and those people where you feel connection and safety, because where you feel connection and safety, that's when you can really release and just take that deep breath of like, oh, I found my people. I have found the person or the people who understand me, who hear me, who see me, where I can be myself. I can share what's going on. And I know that I have people who won't just hear me, but people who maybe really get it and have some wisdom to share, who are not just going to wallow in it with me. Although sometimes that can be helpful. I get that. But the people that are going to hold you accountable and make sure you're doing things like nourishing yourself, setting boundaries, sleeping, moving your body, taking a pause, going out in nature. Like, you need those people in your life that are going to remind you of that. So hopefully this episode helps you understand more about stress and cortisol and even epigenetics if you've never heard about it before. You want your Christmas tree to be on, but in short bursts. You want to enjoy it in short bursts. Otherwise, you want to make sure you have a healthy habit of your Christmas tree lights being turned off. Because again, prolonged lights being on, it's inevitable that eventually certain bulbs are going to burn out. And if any of those specific bulbs had a predisposition in terms of health ailments, as soon as it bursts or burns out, that's when you're dealing with the health ailment, okay? So it's not to scare you. This is really to be a loving wake-up call. So whether you are already experiencing some health ailments, maybe you know it is related to how much stress you were managing at one point. Maybe it was in your job. Maybe it was in a very tumultuous, yucky relationship. Maybe it was in things that you didn't know how to handle that you've gotten better at handling. And here's the thing about, again, epigenetics is that you can also change your epigenetics, right? You can go into more health. There are things that can naturally take you into a better place with your health. Sometimes it doesn't mean it will heal it altogether, although it can be possible, but there is a way to take good care of yourself and to shift how you're feeling in your day-to-day life. So what we want is a very healthy, beautiful, sparkly Christmas tree where you have boundaries around how much time you keep it on and how much time it's off. We don't want you to have it on 24/7, no matter how pretty you think it looks, because it will look pretty on the outside and the wires will be frying on the inside, okay? So I hope this episode helps you better understand your stress and the importance of knowing how to emotionally regulate, how to take care of your nervous system. And if you feel like you could use some additional help with that, reach out and schedule a 60-minute consult on MacyRenee.com, and I would be happy to help you. I'll see you guys next week. Hey there! Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day.